Gary Keller says that success is actually a really short race. It's sprint fueled by discipline, just long enough for the habit to kick in and take over. The biggest challenge that I personally have right now in sales is I feel a little bit squirrely when I don't lead generate. So I go back to, it took me a long time for me to get comfortable and say, well, maybe my highest priority today is actually training and developing, leading and motivating. And that might be appropriate for where I am in my business. And for a long time, I still feel squirrely at the end of the day because I didn't lead generate. Okay. Now, again, I go back to, I'm fortunate I've got resources to be able to do that, but I still feel squirrely when I don't lead generate. It's like in my DNA that I don't feel right if I'm not lead generating. So you are in the lead generation business. You specialize in real estate sales, and that's something that has been on my cork board for 13 years. It has been, I'm in a new office right now. We actually started moving into this office. This is my second day being in this office since March. And interestingly enough, I was moving into this office, and I still have stuff in boxes on the floor here that we were literally moving in March when the coronavirus hit us. And I'm still not unpacked, right? But so I only brought that up because somewhere around here is a cork board, and on that cork board that's supposed to be above my desk behind me, it says you are in lead generation business specialized in real estate sales. Now that's true of anybody's business, by the way. If you're a dentist, you're in a lead generation business specializes in teeth, right? Now maybe you have a business, if you're that dentist, where you just have business coming in, right? But somewhere or another, you have to get new business. Somewhere or another, you have to be able to do it. So let me ask you guys a question. So let me stop real quick and let me ask you, what does consistent lead generation do for you? So what do you guys think? When I say consistent lead generation, what does that mean to you, and what does that do for you?
It allows you to keep your pipeline full so you can have a more predictable business and know, what your next 3 to 6 months is going to look like.
Okay. So have a predictable business and know what your next 3 to 6 months is going to be like. What else?
It allows you to have standards, because if you don't prospect, you can't afford to have standards. So if you lead generate consistently, then you can define the kind of people you want to do business with in terms of, price point or buyers versus sellers or whatever. So gives you freedom. Freedom to choose.
Freedom and it gives you choices. Gives you choices, right?
Yep.
Right. It gives you choices to be able to say no. Give you choices to be able to sit there and say, you know what, ain't worth it.
Yep.
Right.
So he makes it so that your lead generation is more effective. A number of times I've heard my coach say that the money's in the follow-up a lot. And so by being consistent, you're able to really maximize your return on the time and money spent in lead gen.
Yeah, and the lead, I say the lead generation leads to the gold, lead follow-up leads to the platinum. And there are some people that are able to be really good, effective lead generators and not follow up effectively, right? And if you think about that, it's like you're going to spend all this time finding the business and then you forget to call them, 2 months later, whatever the case may be, you're going to be less effective. Right. So I agree with you on that completely, Amy. What else does lead generation do for you?
I've found that it actually allows me to have a defined time where I'm working, and then I can put my phone down and walk away and not feel like I have to have that thing in my pocket 24/7.
So freedom and discipline being connected. Brian, that is an exact example right there of why I started with freedom and discipline. The discipline to lead generate leads to the freedom to put that phone away and not worry about it because you already did your job.
Yeah, that exact phrase. I know I did my job.
You did your job, right? Yet it's the discipline to do it on a daily basis, 5 days a week, that allows for you to be able to have that freedom. If you're sporadic in your lead generation, which is why I suggest figure out how much time you want to do it and then do that time. Because if you are just like sporadic on it, you say, well, one day I'm going to do 1 hour, one day 3 hours, one day 20 minutes. Even if I do it every single day, it doesn't give you the freedom to know if you've done your job or not. If you don't, it goes back to the same thing as what we started with, is like, why would we define success? Because if we don't define success, as Coach James says, if you don't have a definition of it, you're going to hit the target every single time, but who knows what the heck the target's going to be. And it's the same way with lead generation. If you don't define your standard, then you're not going to know if you did your job or not. Of course, I'm going to encourage for you to increase your standard. Of course, I'm going to encourage for you to have a high standard. Yet, let's start with the basics. Have a standard first. Okay? And now that we have a standard, prove to yourself that you have the discipline to remain within that standard, then consider to increase it. Does that make sense? Is that agreeable to you guys? What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So one thing that I want to talk to you about, what lead generation does for me, is it allows for me to be a fiduciary. So the definition of fiduciary is that you are acting on behalf of another in place of that other and have their interests in front of all others, including your own. In real estate, we define that that we will be obedient to them, we'll be loyal to them, we'll provide them disclosures, we'll have everything to be confidential, we'll provide their accounting, reasonable care and due diligence, and we'll be fair and honest to them. That is the definition of a fiduciary in real estate sales. In other words, it's I'm going to be your right arm. If you're my client, I'm going to be the right arm of your client, of you as my client, and I'm going to do as you direct. Now, because I have reasonable care and due diligence, I'm also going to advise you. But ultimately, if you tell me to do something and it's lawful, I'm going to do it on behalf of you for this transaction. Now, the reason why I bring that up here is because I believe that you owe your clients a part of your fiduciary care is to lead generate.
Yeah.
And I believe that because it goes back to having choices. It goes back to having consistency. Because if I'm worried about how I'm going to pay my mortgage payment or my car payment or my kids' college tuition, can I effectively be a fiduciary for a client? If I'm worried about me, how can I possibly worry about them? So I believe that you have a fiduciary care to your client to lead generate every single day. Because when you do so, you'll be in a position that you'll be able to make choices, have choices. And then you're able to, goes back to what we talked about last week. Remember we talked about knowing what to say? It was be in rapport, ask adept questions, actively listen. Well, what does it cost for you to actively listen? What do you have to be able to actively listen? Who recalls? You have to know what to say. Right. Remember when I said to the group, to the team, I said, hey guys, throw up an objection, and someone threw up an objection. I just boom. Right. I'm not worried about the objection that you share with me because I already know what I'm going to say. So because I already know what I'm going to say, that allows for me to listen to you. The same way as when I lead generate on an everyday basis, that then allows for me to then take care of you as my client for the buyer or seller client.